Well, thank you very much. I'll start over here, and then when we ask the questions, I'll come back over there. It is always a pleasure. Oh yeah, silence your phones if you have those phones on. Your DoorDash order will still make it, even if you're. You know, it is very easy. I feel right at home here, as she said. I love Reverend Lynch, as all of you do. And so anytime I'm asked to do anything here at New Jerusalem, it's just a yes. Also, Kenny and Tina Macon are brothers and sisters. I mean, they're family to me. And so anytime, you know, they're like always friends. You know, you have those never friends. Those are folks you don't want to be around. You have those sometimes friends. They're with you when things are good. When they get bad, you call. The number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number and dial again. But then you have those always friends who are just always there through thick and thin. And Tina and Kenny have been there for me the entire time I've been really here in Cincinnati, which is 33 years, believe it or not. I mean, I was 3 when I first arrived. I forgot. I can't say those things. So tonight, you know, I know this has been a long process for you, but God is always in the midst. And if we ever doubt the power of God, all we have to think back, we don't have to think back years and years. Just look at the past 7 days. I had the heat on one day because it was in the 20s. Went to turn the air conditioning on because it hit 60 or 70. It hit 70 in the middle of the night. And then this weekend. I mean, think about that as we prepare to celebrate, as we're taking care of business here. There are families hurting within a stone's throw of here because the power of a tornado. One thing that we said over the weekend, and not to prolong this, but it's a reminder. There was one of the tornadoes, and there were several tornadoes, plural. But one tornado hit the ground, and it was on the ground for 227 miles, I think. Can you imagine that? And 200 miles in the state of Kentucky. And, you know, people were just going about their business, doing normal things. And so we never know. People used to say, you never know what tomorrow brings. I say, I don't know what the next minute will bring, but I am confident that God is always in control and in control of this moment. So let me first bring up Reverend Lynch for a few words. You know, I think about, you know, people might think, well, how do we replace Reverend Lynch? Well, you can't replace Reverend Lynch. You can't replace him. Those are big shoes. Yeah, by the way, those are big feet. My. Those are big shoes. And so, I've thought about this too. You know, hopefully everyone is thinking, you can't replace Reverend Lynch. He has blazed a trail here and throughout this country. But what I think about is your friend, Otis Moss, because, you know, in 1968, after Dr. King's assassination, I can imagine the folks down at Ebenezer saying, how do we replace Reverend King? And the person who eventually replaced him in the pulpit was from right here in Cincinnati, Otis Moss. And the rest is history. Now, he didn't replace Dr. King, obviously. However, he created a new legacy both at Ebenezer and throughout this country. So I am praying with you and for you as you go through this process now, Reverend Lynch.
Thank you. Let's give Curtis a hand tonight for coming out. This is his second time doing this for us, and we thank God for he and Sister Banks and all of the committee from the search committee and the great job you guys have been doing. I'm just so tickled to death at how you've acquitted yourselves from the beginning of this process. We had a little stump in the road and hit a little fork, but now we're back on schedule, and so I'm proud that you're still together and still doing great work, and you brought Curtis back, so I'm happy. Curtis is a comeback kid. The biggest comeback he ever made was when nobody would step up to run for mayor. And here he is, the lead anchor and all that, and doing a great job all those. And we had fought so hard, the man he just talked about, and J.W. Jones, to bring black folk in here to be on TV news. And so we were very successful here in Cincinnati. And Curtis was one of that crowd that came a long time ago. But he decided he wanted to run for mayor so that, you know, somebody would be there to do a job. And he would have made a great mayor. But he didn't win. And then Channel 5 acted a fool and didn't want to put him back, didn't want to hire him. So we got together, the guy he mentioned, and Ernie Waits, y'all remember them names? And we said, oh, no, he did a job because the city needed him, and so you got to hire him back. No, well, you know, in the union, no, ain't about no union, hire him back now. Or else we'll come down here, they were downtown there next to Izzy Cadets. You understand? We'll come down here and smoke you out and put the Izzy stuff all on your windows. We'll march around here till Joshua, 40 days, 40 nights, and then blow the trumpet on you. And Bartley said, all right, Reverend, okay, cool. So here Curtis is back. Can I get away with this here? So let's give Curtis a hand tonight.
That's all right. And you know what? That's the truth, too. He's not making that up at all. Well, let's get to the business at hand, and we will be efficient with your time this evening. Let me tell you a little bit about this young man who is before you tonight. A very impressive background. Joel McCauley Jr. is a native of Durham, North Carolina. He is married to Dr. Lolita Forrest. And she's from Cleveland, but I won't hold that against her. I'm from Pittsburgh, so you know. You see, they'll turn on me before they'll turn on you, so that's all right. I'll stand in front of you all night. But I, you know, when you see that, I said, Dr. Lolita Forrest, and so they are a great team. As I said, he has an impressive background. Joel received a bachelor's degree from New York University, an MBA from North Carolina Central University, and a Master's of Divinity from Morehouse College School of Religion at the Interdenominational Theological Center there in Atlanta. He says, while in Atlanta, he heard God's voice speaking to him, and he finally accepted his call to ministry. As a result, he enrolled in ITC, where he served in various leadership positions and on several committees. He was active as a member at the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, serving in several ministries under the leadership of Reverend, now Senator, Dr. Raphael Warnock. He later joined Green Forest Community Baptist Church. That's located in Decatur, Georgia. And at Green Forest, he served as an associate minister and participated, again, in various church ministries under Reverend Dennis Mitchell. He also received his ministerial license. In addition to working in church ministries, he also served as chaplain for Rockdale Healthcare Center in Conyers, Georgia. Professionally, he has served as a college professor and e-learning educational consultant. He presently works as a healthcare recruiter. He's provided seminars and delivered the word as a guest minister throughout the Southeast and beyond. A powerful teacher, and he has a bold love for Jesus Christ. Now, he is no stranger to you because he serves as an associate minister right here at New Jerusalem. He says his primary goal is to develop a Christ-centered ministry with the following principles. Number one, evoke others to not be idol worshipers, but to become doers of the word through inclusion and service. Number two, become a beacon of hope and encouragement. And last but not least, follow the path that God has directed. Joel says, all power belongs to God, so where God leads him, he is willing to go. So please welcome Joel McCauley, Jr.
Good evening, New Jerusalem. Good to see everyone here. Pastor, clergy, deacons, Mr. Fuller, our moderator, and all of our friends and congregants who are tuning in. I'm very honored and humbled to be before you today. I'm excited about this opportunity to potentially serve as senior pastor at New Jerusalem. I hope that tonight you can learn a little bit more about me and my journey and see how God's blueprint has led me to this point today. Amen? So thank you for your attendance tonight, and thank you so much, Mr. Fuller, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Some of those blueprints include these questions. Some of the fastest growing churches in the country have diverse congregations with multiple worship options in a more relaxed setting. They serve free coffee, attracting many young African American families away from the traditional black church. Do you have any insights into how traditional black churches can attract, retain, and reclaim their members?
That's a good question. I would like to, focus on one of the three to start with, and that is retain. It's very easy for churches to begin to look outside. We are called to evangelize and to try to grow, and that's still one of our goals. However, there are people that are already within our church body. They have various gifts, skills, talents, and need to be engaged and understand that
Okay. You, you touched on this a bit, and you can expand on it, because I know even in my business, social media and this outreach, and even though you said internal is most important, but social media has taken us to a whole new level. We've seen that really in the pandemic, because we used to think, okay, we're serving the congregation who's here, maybe some members who might be watching or listening on radio or TV. But now, your message goes to the world. You're really speaking to the world. So any ideas about social media and that arena, what you think the church could be doing?
Definitely. Social media is here. It's just a way that we do things now, a way that people receive information, and it definitely has value. We've seen some global movements that had their beginnings on social media, with people being able to receive this information in an efficient and quick manner, and it was organized around that. So I do think it's important for churches, especially the traditional black church, going back to the question from before in terms of attracting and retaining people. We should definitely embrace the use of social media and marketing and that type of messaging for a number of reasons. Number one, the youth. That's a part of our mission statement for the church. A lot of young people are on social media, and even adults. When people hear about your church, the way I heard about the church, we Googled it. My sister Googled the church and went to the website. So now people are going to check your website, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, all of the various social outlets to see what you have there. And what do we have? Is it inviting? Is it easy to digest, easy to understand? Is it attractive? What we have on our social platforms, does it evoke a desire in people to want to learn more about what we have to offer at our church? And there are people, possibly even within our body, that have those specific skills. Because I know a lot of you are on social media anyway. So, why not use it for the Lord? So we just have to mine our congregation and maybe even look externally for those people that have those skills. It could be a student, it could be an adult, but there are people that love social media, that have a talent for it in terms of creating that content and engaging with people online. And I know Pastor had mentioned to me a few weeks ago, since we've been in COVID, we've had a broader and much larger reach because people have been tuning in internationally. I know I have had people look from North Carolina all up and down the East Coast, friends on the West Coast. So we're definitely expanding our reach, but we also have to make sure that our marketing, our social media, our website, all of that is up to date and attractive. So, unfortunately, we have to be competitive out here. And some of these other churches, the newer churches, modern churches, are very intentional with their resources, their time, and their human capital in those type of departments: marketing, social, technology. So we definitely need to embrace that as well.
It's a reminder too. There's never a small thing. Now, just changing your microphone changed the whole dynamic in the church here. It's interesting. So there's never. You cannot take anything for granted.
So just imagine if we sat down with some interested parties or our current AV and technology ministry with some specificity and went step by step by step. Can you imagine the growth and the progress we could show in just a small amount of focus time just from changing the microphone? So
this is something I think everyone is mindful of. The different types of ministries and the church leadership. Talk about what you see in terms of roles of deacons and other church leaders. What would you do in terms of connecting with them, encouraging them? Talk a little bit about their role.
Okay, well, from an organizational perspective, we are a Baptist church, and there are certain Baptist polity that come along with that. That being said, the deacon board is a primary function, primary organization within the body of the church. So it is the responsibility of the senior pastor to work in concert with the deacon board for the benefit and edification of the body. At the same time, the deacons are supposed to support the pastor as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and I have a good rapport, I believe, with our deacon board, and I look forward to working with them. My dad is a deacon, so I've seen how that relationship needs to be managed and definitely needs to be invested in, because we will be working intimately together. In terms of the other ministry leaders and ministry heads, I think it's important to understand the word is ministry. And, I'm still relatively new here. So I'm sure we said yesterday there's like 40 ministries and counting here at the church. So as we get ready and continue to come out of COVID and reclaim our members from the first question there, we need to evaluate the ministries that we currently have. I mean, of course, I have some ideas. I have some ministry experience as well. But we have 40 ministries that are already here that have some groundwork there. So it's not a need to like recreate the wheel or anything like that. Also, it would be very arrogant of me to come into a church, 95 years old, acting like I know everything and this is the way we need to do it and this is this and this. This church has been around. So there's things that have been successful. So I do think it's important for us to lean in to what's been successful, evaluate where we are with our other ministries. We may have to, cut some, do some things like that, but it's going to require some evaluation from an organizational perspective to see what would be the best allocation of our resources in comparison to who we have here within our body and who we are targeted to serve in the greater community.
What about equipping and developing? I'm certain your experience at other churches, you've gone through various training and sessions. Are there things that you've learned there that you think to equip and develop those leaders? How would you address that?
That's a good question. One thing I do believe is that people will be more motivated to serve in the church if they are working in ministries for which they have a purpose. We talked a little bit about that in the sermon yesterday. So I do think it's important to help our members find their spiritual gifts and things that they would be potentially good at. For example, I have a joy for singing. You guys have heard me up there sometimes in the choir, but I don't need to be in anybody's choir, No matter how much I have a love for it, I'm going to throw y'all off up there, But, we have to be intentional about some of those things. If you don't have a heart for talking to people and engaging to people, you may not be the best for our hospitality or our parking ministry. But there is a place for you. So that goes along with what you were saying before in terms of equipping and training people. We have to put people in a position where they're going to be the most successful. And that creates a healthy church. People are excited to come and serve. And then when we attract people, they're encountering and experiencing people who are working and serving in ministries and in their purpose. And that is the love of Christ that's going to make people want to come back and say, how can I get involved as well? But we also are going to have to be, that word again, intentional. So that will require some seminars. We just had a seminar on grief with Reverend Porter out of Atlanta. So we may have to reach out to some of our networks to bring in some subject matter experts on the various ministries that we're looking to reignite or deepen or even create. And I'm definitely not opposed to that. I have experience as well in leading seminars and continuing education and training as a professor and also within the church body as well. So I would be happy to see what the needs are, who we need to bring in, and also who we already have. We have plenty of capable professionals here who have done seminars, trainings for their jobs for all over the world. So we don't have to always be so quick to look out. We have to empower and equip and build up the people that we have. And people will be so on fire for God. You're talking about attracting people. If you get the people working where they need to work, then that will carry out in the community. And you will speak about your church. You will speak about Christ. You will just radiate Christ in such a way that I know people will say, how can I get down with you? Because it's happened to me before.
This is talking about your vision for engaging members in Christian education activities and encouraging the participation in disciple-like activities with the church.
Well, I do think Christian education is fundamental. And that can occur in a number of spaces. I know we have at our church Sunday school. People are starting to come back. You know, COVID kind of changed it a little bit. But that's something that we can pay more specific attention to in terms of maybe offer more classes or just letting people know that it's available for starters. And then we can take a look once again at what we have to offer and maybe even take, polls within the congregation of classes you may be interested in. My old church, Green Forest in Decatur, the Sunday school was one of the foundations of their church. They had like 40 or 50 classes. So they would be teaching classes on the Gospels and all of these various things in Sunday school, but it also engaged members who had an interest in teaching that would require them to, go through some training so they could become equipped to teach in that way. I know we also have Vacation Bible School. We definitely need to continue that, invest in that. We also have Sunday school, VBA, Bible study, twice, and our church is open. So I think that's one of the main messages we have to be clear about, especially now as we're attempting to differentiate ourselves from other churches in this community. We are open. I think I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. We're open, we're safe, we have COVID protocols, so you can come. And we also have our virtual options available as well, which goes back to making sure our technology is up to date so people can experience us the same online as they were here.
Now we look into the community and the community impact. What are some examples of work you have done in the community? And what are some of your passions for the work you desire to do in the community?
It's a good question. I'm very thankful to come from a service-focused and service-oriented family. So my parents always kept my sister and I involved in the church and also in community activities. And so as I matriculated into adulthood, there are some things that I continue to do as well. We've worked on ministries at the homeless shelter in North Carolina, bringing an arts ministry to those youth there, as transient youth as well. There was a shelter in the Durham area as well for transitional mothers and children, and we brought in a STEM education program there to help those kids and their mothers as well. In Cincinnati, we're still relatively new here, so I haven't had as much time to get engaged in the local community here, but that is something that is definitely important, especially for this church. This church has a sterling reputation in the Cincinnati and the local community around here, and the church is called to serve and stand in the gap for those people. So I definitely think that that service and building partnerships with existing organizations, partnerships with other churches, can also increase the effectiveness of the ministry, and the populations that we're trying to serve can be helped more by building those alliances, deepening those alliances that we already have, but also praying to God for some new creative ideas to engage people to serve better in that way as well. So I do think if we diligently seek the Holy Spirit in terms of how do we engage people, because if we read the Gospels, Jesus was relational. He came here to teach us how to deal and live with each other. And that's very important. And the church has to be an example for that, showing grace, opening our doors, offering money or whatever it is, resources for people that need it. So the church has to stand in the middle there, but there are other organizations that are doing that work as well that we can work in concert with for the greater good.
Mentioning that, we were talking about the tornadoes earlier, and one of the things that impressed me most is how churches throughout the area really stepped up and said, we're going to lead the charge on helping folks down in Kentucky and beyond. And, and not every church can do the same thing. Yeah. Each church can do. One church sent a check, wrote a check Saturday morning for $50,000.
Amen.
And now every church can't do that, but it's proof, though, if it's organized and committed to, that you're ready to respond when situations occur.
Well, we have an obligation to. And also, I guess from a government perspective, historically, that is why the church was created with tax-exempt status, so we can help the government stand in the gap for what the government can't do. in terms of helping the people that are in need. So we have a moral and a legal obligation to serve as well. But morality definitely trumps the law. I'm definitely not a legalist at all.
Given the challenges you see here in Greater Cincinnati, I know that you've only been here a couple of years, but you've seen some challenges in those 2 years, no doubt. Where would you suggest the focus be on the efforts to address these challenges?
That's a good question, because these issues are so nuanced. It's not just one singular issue that can take precedence over the other, because everybody's lives are valuable and everybody's important. There are a lot of people experiencing challenges. I do know one thing that particularly touched my heart was the spike in gun violence. I know, I think it was the month of October, was it? There was 50 shootings in Cincinnati, Greater Cincinnati. I had the opportunity to speak with a police officer, and he told me that the majority of those shootings were young teenagers, like 13, 14, young, not even 16 to 18. So that's going to require some direct intervention. And the church is going to have to be there, be it through mentoring programs, which I know we already have, after school, summer camp, some kind of enrichment to engage these youth, to get them some activities, give them some Christ, and hopefully point them in a different direction. Do you understand what kind of life you have to be a 13-year-old shooter? Like, that is awful. A 13-year-old should be a 13-year-old, not worrying about basic necessities and their safety. So we have to unite as a church, first of all, with the power of prayer, and starting there. And also, too, these issues, they're so nuanced. It's poverty and the income gap, and it's so many different things, but it definitely starts with prayer, with the church. But I believe, too, ministry also starts at home. I know with BLM and all of these protests, sometimes I call it selective outrage. People can, hit the streets for the things they're upset about, but what about your home, and what are you doing? How are you treating the people that you encounter? I could be on the streets all night, but how am I treating my wife? The people that are really close to me. And that's the true Christ lifestyle right there. So all of the screaming and shouting and all that stuff, people are not going to respect it if you're not living it all the time. And that's where the power has gone away, Mr. Fuller. So we have to get back to the basics. I mean, we can even go back to past, I don't know, some tent revivals and some stuff like that to really get people back on fire for God, because God has been taken out of people's homes, out of the schools. And so we have to take a stand and say enough is enough. We're going to protest. We're going to, talk to our government officials. We're going to have programs and stuff here at the church. We're going to partner with the community, but you also can call and examine me. And I'm going to be there. I'm not perfect, but we're going to try to do the best that we can.
That sounds like the alarm when I wake up. So if I jump, you mentioned those young people. I have a 17-year-old. Boy, most people know that I have an older daughter, and then I have the 17-year-old. The difference between raising the older daughter and this 17-year-old is night and day.
Yeah.
It is amazing. Both are great kids. I mean, I've been blessed, despite the gray hair you see. So I've been blessed, but what I worry about, I worry for her, because you can teach them all the right things, and then they step out the door, and someone, as we've seen recently, driving down the street shooting at each other in a car. So they're surrounded by so much, and this is so important, because the young people will they're really the survival of the church because
Right.
you're growing, growing families. So what approach will you take to better integrate young people into the worship service?
Excellent question. Well, I think we already are at an advantage because our children's church is back. So I already mentioned we have some advantages because we're open and our ministries are starting to come back and come back and come back. So we already have children's church. That means we have some dedicated volunteers already and some resources that are already there. So once again, I believe in leaning into what you already have. I also believe in subject matter experts. You got to ask. I mean, there are like our ministry leaders already for children's church and the youth. You know, we also have some educators within our church body who interact with young people on a daily basis. Some people have organizations that serve the youth. So instead of us coming with this blueprint that we created, I do think it's best for us to ask the people that are already working in that space and also maybe even ask the youth, what do you want? You know, now granted, I have some ideas too. I do think there's some things we already have. There are some ways to create some programs and even point some people here to a special event or things of that nature to get them to come. I saw in pastor's office, there was a basketball picture. I don't know if we have a recreation ministry, you know, that we can reactivate, at least getting one basketball team in one of the local little leagues, because that will engage parents and get other people. The players don't have to go to our church. Our church is just sponsoring a team at the Y or whomever. That's what I did in North Carolina as well. So that's another way to reach out. You know, we can have, you know, whatever the rules are, New J on the shirts or whatever, but that's another way to engage through recreational activities, through the existing organizations, the Y, Cincinnati Parks and Rec, and those sort of things that already exist. That's nothing but a meeting and a phone call to see what we need to do to have that set up for our young people. The number one thing, though, is besides all this other stuff, we have to have hope. You can see these shootings. I mean, we've talked to some of these kids. I've talked to some of them, and like, it's like almost dead behind their eyes unless they're looking at a screen or talking about something kind of silly and frivolous. But they are children. But we are in a real world situation right now that is going to require some attention. So we just have to believe that God is going to replenish us through our youth. All of our youth are not lost. They're not. There's some that just need a little bit of extra hand, just a little bit of resource, just somebody to say, I love you, somebody to drive them to church, somebody to say, hey, I want you to be in the play or you want to be on the basketball team. And the next thing you know, that next youth that was out there on the street could be sitting right here. You just never know. But we have to be intentional about it and finding these opportunities to engage with our youth. But once again, from the beginning, when they come, what are they going to come to? When the parents come, what are they going to come to? If we get the kids excited, the students excited within school, hey, our church, come to New J, then the parents are going to have to come because the kids are coming. But what are they going to come to? We have to be ready to accept this growth and these attractions that, you know, we all believe is in our future, and that's what we want.
And that focus, I think we're talking about really is that younger group, because as you mentioned, you know, we see kids as young as like 9 and 10 with these guns and things. So we have to get to them early, no doubt about it. Then those teenage years are always strange, you know. I mean, it's been so long ago for me to be a teenager, but I know I was walking into a lot of walls when I was a teenager. Yeah. So those are always strange years. But then there's that period of when they think they're grown by the number they see on their driver's license. Yeah. But they're still learning and still growing. And that period between about 19 and 30, so important because they're really developing things. But they need just as much hope and help then. And that's tough because, again, they think they're grown. And, you know, how do you get to
well, you know,
that
18 to maybe like mid-40s, that's like the lost generation for traditional black churches. I mean, I can't speak for, you know, all of them, but I know a lot of our churches are missing that specific demographic, especially the men. You know, I mean, we can get the ladies to come to church, but where are the black men? There's been a lot of studies on that. I know one of my colleagues studied that for his research when I was in seminary. A part of it, I believe, is what you were saying before, Mr. Fuller, about equipping people. When people come to church, especially in those formative years, when you're 16, when I was 16, I had my little car, I thought I was B.A.D., you know? So, yeah, nobody could tell me anything. But that's the issue. When you're coming into a situation, keep in mind, you're still in school. You got people telling you what to do all the time, and don't do this and don't do that. And, even, sometimes from the pulpit, this, we have to equip them and make this age group feel like they have something to contribute. Not that we're speaking at them or to them, but that they have something to offer as well. And we can create sort of like an engaged pedagogical experience there, where there's learning, but there's service, and there's attendance, and there's growth. But we have to be, that word, intentional about letting them know, hey, what do you want to do? There's a gentleman here tonight, wonderful, gifted photographer. How can we use that in the church body? Using your talents for God. Something that you already are doing and that you like to do. Not, we already have this set up for you. Come here and do this. Especially for the missing people. We have to find out, why are you missing? What's going to make you want to come back? And when you come back, what's going to make you want to stay? Retain. And that's why we have to be focused on that. What are they coming to? Can we get them active? Can we get you serving? What do you want to do? Do you know your spiritual gifts? Have you ever served in church before? Do you think you can sing? Whatever it is. But just making sure we get people active and activated. I know some of the modern churches, and I watch some of the worship. I like Christian contemporary music. Some of that come out of those churches, Bethel and Hillsong and them. So I've seen how those models have come. A lot of those members, I can't speak for all of them, and my wife and I went to Southeastern Christian Church in Louisville to a concert. It's the third largest church in the United States. That church was huge. Their worship center had like 5,000 seats. It was huge. But with a church that large, everybody's not coming to be involved. Some people just kind of want to come and, just kind of watch. Our church, we're going to get there. I believe God for it. But what we have now, we can activate everybody. So we don't want to create a culture of observation. The Holy Spirit in the worship experience is participatory. Ministry is active. So if you're taking somebody off the street that hasn't been to church, you have to kind of guide them a little bit, ask them what they want, but have something in place, because they're just not going to know. So you're expecting a baby to come and drive a car? That doesn't make any sense. So we have to be in a position to work with those people that are missing, because they are missing a lot. Education, activities, basic understanding of how a church service works. Because they used to go into concert church, where you stand up for 40 minutes, listen to a quick message, and gone. They're not used to having political figures come and speak, having our deacons make presentations and stuff. That's foreign to a lot of people. So they have to be exposed and taught that. And I like this kind of church as social center of community where people can come and talk. I don't need to go to a concert. Worship is participatory, not just for us to watch, him on a screen or her on a screen. That's just my feelings. And no disrespect to any churches, because our church may grow and we may have to evaluate how to, engage 3,000 people. Who knows? I came from a church. Green Forest in Atlanta was big like that, thousands of people, but it was traditional. So they still had some of those elements, but they were able to still grow. And we can model and look at other churches as well.
Well, this is, yeah. This. Okay. You talked about participating. So this is when we are going to allow folks here to participate, ask questions. We also, as you know, folks are looking in on Facebook, so they can ask questions and send questions that way. So I'm not sure, how did we set this up? Did people already have questions, or are they going to ask these?
We're going to ask from the little point over here. Unfortunately, Facebook Live is down, so we were going to be taking questions from Facebook Live, but we still can take questions from the audience today. We're having folks who are watching on the website text a few individuals here, so we may get some questions from the website via text message. So bear with us a little bit, but we'll start with questions from the audience.
Go ahead and say your name, and obviously you're going to have to speak up with your mask on.
Hello, my name is Karen Sylvester. I'm a member of New James for a while. And my question is a little bit different, but I think a lot of people may feel it. Pastor Lynch is very strong-willed, funny, we're used to him. But how's the backbone? How will you be able to stand up and direct our church according to your blueprint when it may not align with Pastor Lynch's blueprint?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Next question. No, I'm just joking. No.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Karen, thank you for that question. For those of you who are online, Karen asked, with Pastor Lynch having a strong-willed, assertive, and funny personality, what is my backbone like, and how will I be able to, I guess, effectively lead this church? Okay, that was your question. Well, I feel very confident in that. I think Pastor Lynch is a good example. He's actually the reason that I joined this church, so I could learn under somebody and, have a good mentor. So when I came, I didn't know that this was going to be a part of anything. I think you all were already in the middle of a search. And then when I found out, I didn't bother me. I was just going to serve and stay anyway, So I think having Pastor Lynch is a good example to see how to operate within the church. But understand, too, I am my own man. I have lived in several different states. Thank you. But yeah, I've lived in several different states. I've had to establish networks multiple times. I've led several organizations. I know you mentioned healthcare. That was my old job. I'm an executive recruiter now. So I deal with CEOs, people, plant managers, company owners, $1 million people in this area. So I'm not intimidated or respecter of persons or anything of that nature. I think God has a special calling on my life. Even going back to high school, I was student body president for 2 years. So every chance that I've had in my educational group settings, I've been afforded leadership opportunities through election. So I do have the ability and a love to deal with people. And that's part of the reason I'm here. I've built relationships with a lot of you. A lot of you have built relationships with me in my short time here. So I do think primary thing is not be dismissive. Understand that everybody is going to have their opinions. Y'all love Pastor Lynch just like I do. I don't want him to go anywhere. I love him too. That's why I'm here. But at the same time, life is going to have to go on, and that's something that we're just going to have to face. And in all of our lives, we've all had to make certain decisions, and you just got to have to move forward with it, and that's just the way it's going to have to be. I do believe in constructive conversation. But if there is a decision that needs to be made where there is a difference of opinion, my wife can tell you, I don't mind making that decision. So, I'm perfectly okay with that. But like I said, Pastor has had a good example. But I feel very confident in leading this flock. And if it's not here, I feel confident moving forward in my journey in ministry as vocation.
Very good. Another question in the back. Just speak, yeah.
Oh, interesting question. Good question. So did I need to repeat that again, Deacon Macon? I think Sister Gwen just asked, how would we create a diverse, multi-generational message? Am I correct? Did I hear you correctly? I think one of the advantages that I have is, first of all, I am a Bible believer. And the Bible is going to stand for all ages, all thoughts, and all walks of life. And some of these new, quote, ways of thought, it's not new if we just look in the Word. You know, some of these issues have been around for thousands and thousands of years, so it's nothing new. I came from White Rock Baptist Church in Durham, Reginald Van Stevens, pastor, and we didn't have like specific children's church. And also another church, my dad played for a senior choir for many years at First Baptist Church in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Dr. J.R. Manley was the pastor. He was actually the first one who prophesied that I would preach when I was a young guy. I was maybe 12 or 13. But those preachers were preachers for everybody, multi-generational. So we didn't step out for the children's church. The children now have an advantage, you know, because when I was growing up, we had to sit and listen. But I had the advantage. Dr. Van Stevens is a homiletic professor at Shaw. So, you know, he knows how to preach. He teaches how to preach. So I've grown up under those ministers that create messages for everybody. And you have to be aware of your audience. You don't know who's going to be in the congregation. So for us to create a specific message for this, that's not like a theme like yesterday was anniversary. But part of it, too, Gwen, is also Bible and Holy Spirit centered as well. So seeking God, starting with the Bible, and my history and I guess skills of intergenerational sermon preparation anyway, I think will fit fine with this congregation and moving forward. I think that the youth need to understand how to sit in church. I mean, you sit in school all day and do other things. You should be able to sit in church for a couple of hours and get some word in you. But at the same time, it is responsibility of the pastor primarily, and, you know, the worship experience to engage the youth. So I try to add elements that, you know, maybe people think are interesting, or, you know, stories, anecdotes to try to relate. But at the same time, the message is for everybody. I'm not going to specifically, I don't want to use the word pander, but like specifically shoot for millennials. I mean, we have a lot of seasoned members here. So it wouldn't make sense for, you know, me to do, you know, all these millennial based, you know, salvation social media, you know, like that's not what we're doing here. You know, so, I mean, we just have to be cognizant of who our congregation is. But I do think God is just so awesome. He will give you the words to, you know, make it clear and make it plain for everybody, just like I feel like we were able to do with the message yesterday.
Looks like Kenny has a question from Facebook.
Question from Facebook.
All right.
From the internet. Let me use your
Okay.
With the instant wanted now culture, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the black church, and do you have any suggestions on addressing those challenges? With the instant wanted now culture, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the black church, and do you have any suggestions on addressing those challenges?
It's a great question. There's a documentary that Lo and I watched called Christ Alone. It's on Netflix. I definitely highly recommend that. It's a pretty much an academic critique of the prosperity gospel. You know, that started like the 70s, 80s with this, you know, you live right, you're going to get blessed, but not just blessed, the financial blessing. And so that's when you got people running up to the pulpit and throwing down $100 and, you know, feeling like if they are going to sacrifice all of it, then God's going to bring it back financially. And I think that this concept of like God as genie, you know, you just can rub the lamp and say, God, give me this. That's been very problematic for the black church. We have to get back to the basics of serving God and serving Christ because it's the right thing to do, and not because of anything financial or material that we're going to get out of it. And that goes back to teaching, focusing on the word, and getting back to the foundation a little bit. Yesterday, we got some cracks in our foundation in the black church, but I think we can help heal that. So that would be my one I guess, indictment of, some of the prosperity gospels. This has gotten people confused. And people are thinking like, if I lost my job or, if something happened to me financially or this and that, I'm not living right. You can be doing the right thing. Stuff happens to people through no fault of their own. God doesn't love you any less because you're not rich. I mean, if the prosperity gospel was so powerful, we would have, 20 times more black millionaires. We wouldn't even have to be really taking up offering. We have 2-3 large tithers in the church putting down $50,000, $60,000 every Sunday if it was working like that. So I just think it's important for us to focus on who God is, who Christ is, finding our purpose, separating the spiritual from the secular, which is difficult to do because we do live in a physical, secular world. We're not in this high, holy, rolling world all the time. But we are spiritual creatures, those of us that know, that are here tonight and that are tuning in. We are Christians and we know better. So that is going to be a challenge. But that goes back to when they come, what are they going to experience here? We're not promising you're going to get rich in your bank account, but you're going to get rich in Christ. What does that mean? So I think that, once again, we have to be intentional about our teaching, our study, us being united as a congregation and having a singular, thought or faith message. So if, I see Brother Antoine at the store or, sister here, somewhere else, they all are kind of saying the same thing because we're all under the same teaching and, with the same faith organization. So we're going to have to fight against that. I mean, we're in capitalism. It's hard. We all want to work. It's Christmas time, all that stuff. But we have to do our best to fight against that in the black church.
How you doing, Joe?
How you doing?
Antoine Wills. Do you believe in the doctrine of grace? Why and why not?
Good question. So he asked, do I believe in the doctrine of grace? I say 100% yes. It was one of our, more spirited debates when I was in seminary, Mr. Fuller, about grace and works. And there's some theologians that, believe grace, some believe works, some believe a combination. I was one of those before because, I came from people volunteering and serving in the church. So I'm like, that's what you do. Both of my grandmas, I talked about my grandma yesterday. Me and my mom were just talking about it. Both of them served in the church until they just physically were unable to. Their health had just failed them, but they were there every Sunday. We were laughing. My grandma came to visit us in Atlanta. She was downstairs one morning at 5-something in the morning, fully dressed with a hat on, ready to go to church. That's how much she loved the church and wanted to be there. So, but yeah, I digress. Sorry, you got me thinking about grandma and all of them. But that serving in the church is very, very, very important, and we just have to continue to activate and motivate people to do that.
Do you have another question back there? If not, oh, there's a question over here. All right. Historically, women led the push to serve in the church. With that being said, how would you get more men to become active in the church? Now, you touched on this about men not being involved, so that's interesting.
It's a very, very important question. So first, I like the example of Pastor Lynch. So I visited some other churches which shall be unnamed in this community. And when I let the pastors know that, hey, I'm in ministry, I'm trying to learn and serve, it's always a little bit of different type of spirit. I don't know what that spirit is, but it was something different. I don't know if it's a competitive thing or something or whatever. It's like, I don't want your church. I just moved here. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody is thinking about that. But when I met Pastor Lynch and some of the other pastors that, have been my mentors, it's about being secure. That's going to be the start. So your leader has to be secure as a man. So when these other men are coming from the street, and you've been around those insecure, kind of scary dudes, nobody's going to want to deal with you if you are like that as a man. You're going to have to be kind of straight up and secure and not worry about your position or anything like that. That's where it starts, because then we can talk to each other as men. It's not this whole what you want from me and all this sort of stuff. It's not like that. We're speaking to each other man to man. So I think like having that confidence to know that, this is where I am and this is what it's going to be, how can we work together is where it's going to start. Because a lot of men that, I've kind of talked to and experienced have had that similar experience where the pastor wants all attention and all power in him. But just like Pastor Lynch is a servant. He knows it's not him, it's all God. That's why he can be so confident in who he is. That's how I can be confident in who I am. I know it's not me, it's God. So once you as a man, and you've been in the public eye, you got to be confident. You can't be shaky. People will see right through that. And I'm not going to want to deal with you. This is a shake, and you're going to tell me how I'm supposed to get to heaven? And you acting like you scared of me? So that's for starters. We got to get back to like, I'm not trying to sound misogynist, but like men being men and like dealing with each other like that. So that's going to be for starters. I think also, too, we have a very strong diaconate ministry here. We also have some good trustees. Most of our ministerial staff, Reverend Frost, Reverend Harrison, we're all guys, too. So we have a lot of men in leadership here. I'm not sure. Once again, I'm still learning about these ministries. But one of my friends at his church, he has a model where they are very intentional about their men's ministry. They meet weekly or bi-weekly. They've been doing it over Zoom just to keep men engaged. Being a man, especially being a black man, we experience certain challenges that are unique to us. And I know our sisters have held us up for generations. You all have your challenges too, but we have our challenges too. And sometimes as a man, you have, number one, a responsibility to take care of your family and take care of others, and you can't really complain about your situation, or sometimes you can't even really take time to acknowledge what's going on around you because you have to be responsible for others. And that creates stress. It can create resentment. It can lead to a lot of things, a lot of us suffering in silence. And then we start getting into our bad habits and different little things like that. I know about that, So we have to create a space where men can come, where it's a safe space, where it's confidential primarily. So we feel like we can share some stuff that, you may not be comfortable sharing with, your wife or whomever, but you can talk to about it because we're men. But we have to create that safety and that security to know that I got his back, it's not going anywhere. He got my back, it's not going anywhere. We're going to pray for each other. We're going to believe together. You struggling, call me. I'll call you, some accountability and that sort of stuff within the church. So if we're intentional about building up the men and intentional about having this men's ministry and intentional about being confident men who are leaders in the community and leaders in our church, people are going to want to get down with us. That's what leadership is. If you're a leader, people are going to want to follow you. But going back to what you said earlier, Mr. Fuller, we have to be intentional. That's where the men's ministry comes in. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be this? This can be some seminar, some type of continuing education, some type of dialogue that we can continue to have. But once we get to men, there was a young man that was here yesterday, we're trying to hold on to. What are they going to come to? You got to get them active. You can't just say, see you next week, see you next week. No. You're going to have some skin in the game. Some kind of responsibility to do something at the church, because we're men. Most good men, spirit-filled men, have a natural sense of responsibility. So those people that are seeking the church, if they've been out on the street or on drugs or whatever, that means they got that in them. It just needs to be nurtured and pulled out. They need to be around some men like Deacon Macon and Pastor and some of the other Reverend Harris, all the other good men here, so they can see what it's supposed to be. And then get in that environment where you have some friends. You can talk to somebody. I mean, your wife is your friend, your kids are your friends. That's cool, but like when you become an adult, sometimes it's hard to have guy friends. That time and all that stuff. Most of my good friends, they don't live here. My good friends live in L.A., some back home. We don't really see each other like that. But having friends within the church is very important and within the community, because we're all believing and trying for the same stuff. And so even if I'm struggling, so I'm not trying to preach, but if I'm struggling, I know he got my back. He got my back. He done been through it. It's nothing new. And that's where we can start engaging some of the younger men and getting them trained up to be good husbands and good providers and leaders in the church and stuff like that as well.
Trusted
Yeah.
friends, yeah, because on the board. All right. If you are called to be the next pastor, what top 3 things would you need from Reverend Lynch to help make a smooth transition?
It's a very interesting question. Top 3. I'll say number 1, probably that black car. So I can ride around the town pretty big. You know, I thought my car was all right till Pastor pulled up, and I had to ride back around White Castle and pull back up again. I'm just joking, Pastor. But yeah, number 1 definitely would be prayer. Starting there. And our pastor, I mean, he's been our pastor 51 years. You know that he's a praying man, and he's, you know, spiritually sensitive and asking God for discernment and in those ways. So my number 1 would be prayer, because God may show Pastor Lynch something that may be coming for me that didn't come for him. So he can, like, you know, prepare me and say, hey, Joel, why don't you consider this? I didn't experience this, but God put this on my spirit to share with you. You know, those sort of things like that. So prayer, number 1. Number 2, probably say maybe just a longer conversation about some of the key leaders and stakeholders within the church. I've met a lot of you. I mean, I know, you know, chair of the deacon board and lead trustees and, you know, that sort of thing. But our church is a living, breathing body. And everybody that is maybe, you know, I don't want to say influential, but, you know, influential within our church may not be a ministry leader. You know, maybe some people that somebody goes to for this and different things like that. So he has some inside information on the inner workings of the interpersonal, you know, relationships within our congregation. So I probably need a little dive there because I am still meeting and learning a lot of you. And the third thing, I mean, I'd be interested, and we talked about this when I first met Pastor Lynch. This is before this became anything, you know. He was like, you know what, Joel, I'm going to take you for a ride around Cincinnati and show you some of these places and what this used to be and this used to be, so, you know, you can learn the history and different things like that. Right now, we live in Mason, you know, so we're still, like, getting used to Cincinnati. When we come to the city, it's pretty specific. It's for church. We'll go to the game or go eat, you know, show or something, but we haven't spent all this time just driving around Cincinnati for specific things, because, you know, we're a little bit north, not far from here, like 15 minutes from here, but it's still Mason. So getting a little bit more acclimated with the city from the vantage point of the Pastor Lynch historic guided tour, that would definitely be very helpful in easing this transition. So I say his prayers and wisdom, I guess a lay of the land for New Jay, and a lay of the land for Greater Cincinnati as well. That's a good question. You know, I definitely love Sister Lynch as well. She's welcomed me and had discernment on me and everything. So she's definitely is a great leader and a wonderful first lady and a good example for a woman of Christ. Anytime you have leaders, that transition is going to be difficult and it's going to be some change. I'm not exactly sure, ma'am, what all Ms. Lynch is involved in. I know she's our director of Christian education, but a part of that is, once again, like I said, getting a lay of the land to see what all she's involved in and, you know, who else do we potentially have in place. If I know Ms. Lynch like I think I do, she already has these ideas going in her head. She's not just going to just leave and they retire to Florida. You know, so she already has some ideas for, you know, for this type of thing. So it's also a matter of engaging her. You know, hey, Ms. Lynch, you've been successful doing this, this, and this. What do you see? Well, this is maybe what I think. You know, she and I have a good relationship. I can text her and call her and all that stuff. So, like, I have no problem talking to her. She has no problem talking to me. I remember one day, I don't know if she's watching, I wasn't doing so well. But, you know, those days where you think you're doing good, but you're not. And Sister Lynch, this is before she even really knew me. She got me in the back and was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, what do you mean? What you mean?" She was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm cool." And she kind of like hugged me and patted me, but she was just letting me know, I see you, you know, and you can talk to me, you know, in her way. So thank you, Miss Lynch, if you watch. I don't know if you remember that, but that was a little bit before we got cool. But you had discernment on me, and you knew something wasn't right with me that day, but also opened up the door. So to answer your question, I believe there are people here that can help fill that gap. And for the people that aren't here, I believe God is going to send them from the outside with the skills and the desire to work and to help build up God's kingdom and keep New J going. So we will be sad to see Pastor and Miss Lynch, you know, leave all of their duties and responsibilities. But at the same time, I do think there are people within this organizational body, this faith community, that are very capable and maybe willing and waiting for the opportunity to be equipped and empowered to do something. So, I mean, Ms. Lynch did a great job. Pastor is continuing to do a great job. They're still here. But who knows what the future may hold? Somebody may come with some new ideas. We may need to do this and do that, and things just continue to grow and explode. Who knows? But we do have to be open to that. So while still acknowledging their legacy, because that's not going anywhere. You know, I'm happy that I'm here under Pastor Lynch, you know. So everything that they have, we're not trying to erase or denigrate their legacy at all. We are very thankful for it. But we do have to pay attention, like you mentioned, to what's going to happen when they do transition, which is inevitable. But I do think we will survive and we will flourish from that.
Looks like you have another question in the audience.
Well, I think he asked a God story. Another name for a God story to me is a testimony. Is that correct? So it really just depends on, I guess, the circumstances, if it's just one-on-one or are we public, you know, congregational ministry or whatnot. So that's going to really depend. I mean, I can just share with you all, some of you know that in 2020, so I joined in December 2019. That's when I actually joined. But I come a little bit in the spring. I was gone during the summer. Then I started coming back in the fall. I met Miss Debbie, some other people at Bible study. And then I joined in December. January was coming, serving, because Pastor said, hey, if you're a minister, you don't go to work, you'll rust. You know, so he was like, we got to get you working. But February, I had a very bad car accident. It was on February 27th. This is my sister's birthday. And right off of Snyder Road. And it was a single car accident. And I could have been out of here. And sorry, guys. That's my testimony, you know. It was pretty bad. But the church responded. Pastor checked on me, Miss Lynch checked on me, Twyla checked, Miss Sharon checked on me, Miss Debbie sent me a letter. So just know that, like, you can be out of here in an instant. And that wasn't real to me until I had it almost happened to me. And my car was total and everything, and like by the grace of God, now my leg is still not all the way right. I had some soft tissue injuries and some stuff with my knees. So I'm officially retired from basketball. Me and Lo talking about that. So you guys may not get to see me hoop for real. Maybe I'll shoot around a little bit, but I'm not gonna be doing that anymore. But the extent of my injuries was a little leg damage, and I have some scars on my hand. But I will say that. Don't take any day for granted. Don't take any moment for granted. If you have any petty beefs or any sort of things that's just hanging out there, just end that and try to reconcile with people, because you never know when you won't have the opportunity to do that again. And you always hear these stories of people saying, I wish I had more time. I wish I had more time with them and this and that. We don't never know the day or the hour. And I'm feeling convicted right now because like I said, I'm not perfect. I haven't done everything correct and all that stuff. And I try to treat people right. But we just have to be intentional about that, because every moment is precious, and you just never know when you can be gone or when somebody else can be gone due to their fault, which is my fault, or no fault of their own. So just cherish each other and love each other, and trust God. Like we said yesterday, God is a protector. I might not even have been here, or I could have been a paraplegic or had a traumatic brain injury or anything. But God spared me for a reason. What that reason is, He's still continuing to reveal His blueprint to me. But that's my testimony. Almost died last year, and I'm up today kicking and screaming and back and better than ever. So God covered me. He cleaned me up. And He helped me to move forward in the best way.
Do you have one more question? Okay. Yeah, thank you for those questions. First of all, in regards to how I would deal with the youth, I think one of the advantages that I have just in terms of being a minister is having a love for people. And some of you can attest to that. I like people. I like meeting people. I like being around people. I just like people, and I have a heart for that. So that extends to young people as well. So to answer your question, it would just be a matter of pretty much just being myself. Of course, our church is growing. It's a good-sized church, but it's no reason that, I shouldn't be able to have a personal relationship with most of the people here. So I would have to be intentional about that, especially the young people, because they're going to be the key. Going to tell their students and their friends, come to my church. Tell your mama to come to my church, and that sort of thing. So I will be very intentional about engaging with our youth ministry leaders and also the youth. When I was a young kid, I loved my pastor. They were cool. It was a good thing. But you also want your pastor to be approachable. I've seen other situations where people are like, oh, you talk to the pastor. It's kind of like, aren't you supposed to? But people have different perspectives on that as well. But I am personable. Many of you can attest to that. I'm here. I'll speak to you. I'll talk to you. I'll do the best I can to get to know you. If I am called to be the pastor here, there would be some time to schedule with the church office. One effective method I've seen for new pastors is
They just block out time for however long it takes, 2 months, 3 months, a little bit of time every week to schedule time to meet with everybody. Just call the church office, get your 30 minutes or an hour, and we can sit down and have a conversation so we can meet face to face. And I'm willing to do that however long it takes. Being a pastor, you're called to serve. So it's not this hierarchical thing. I mean, I'm sure, of course, there's an organizational chart, but Jesus flipped the org chart, didn't he, y'all? He came in on the donkey, so, that's what it is. So to answer your question, engage with them. Let them know I'm here. What do you need? When they have community activities, the best I can, try to show up at their stuff. If the parents let the church office know they're having a banquet, so-and-so made the honor roll, so-and-so is in the championship game or something like that, I will do the best I can to be present. That will help our church members know that I care, that I'm going to be there, and that will also help us engage with the community, because Pastor Lynch is in the community. So people need to see the new pastor in the community, especially someone that's new to the city. So me sitting in the ivory tower here is not doing anybody any good. We got to be out there. And I think that the young people will respect that if they see you trying to support them with authenticity. I'm not 12, so I'm not going to be able to talk to them with their slang and, hey, well, like I was young once too, but I'm not that level anymore. So I think you just have to just be yourself. I just remember when I was a young kid and like people would come and try to talk cool to me and stuff. And it's just like, don't just be yourself. You don't have to try to be cool, just be yourself. And, we'll find some barometer of coolness, but don't try to use my lingo and my slang if that's not what you do. And that's not what I'm going to do. Can I ask the second question about the finances? Yeah. Now, we are Baptist. There's certain polity that comes along with that. And I understand that. I understand we also have a very strong trustee board. A diaconate board as well. So in terms of the finances, I know for a fact that there are already mechanisms in place and qualified professionals that are already managing that part. In terms of like how we're going to allocate resources to ministries and things of that nature, that's something that we can discuss. Once we take a look at what we have and what we need and where we want to go, that can be a discussion in terms of allocation. But just the overall financial picture and financial outlook of the church, I would be more than happy to let the, structures that are already in place continue to work with that if they're effective until, we need to create some kind of change.
Okay.
Okay, good question. So he asked what my style of leadership was, hands-on, laid-back, fast-paced. I think my style of leadership is definitely, I would say, motivational, cooperative. I do believe in, listening to the needs of the group and, making everybody feel as if, they have something to contribute, because they do. Keep in mind, this is a Baptist church. So, the parishioners do have something to say about everything that happens in the body of the church. But I'm a combination of all of those. I like to work with people. I can be strategic. I do have an MBA. I've had, many jobs. So I know how to work within an organization as well and lead an organization. So, Antoine, to answer your question, I think that God has equipped me to be a versatile leader, to utilize my various gifts, temperaments, talents, as the situation needs to see fit. There may be some times where, I may not need to get my hands in the situation. It's already, like I said, she asked about the finances. Well, I need to come in and say, hey, well, we need to change this and change this. It's working well. So that may be a situation where I need to be more hands off. Whereas if we need to engage the youth,
we may have to be intentional about that. We're going to the YMCA today to meet with the person to, get the basketball team started. So that may be a hands-on type of thing that I may need to be the one to make the call, not just delegate that. So I do believe in delegation as well and empowering people to do. More can be accomplished if more people are working. So, you all have been in leadership before. It's possible to get burned out. And it's also possible to, I think one thing I've learned is, would you rather give 100% to 4 things or have 50 things get 5%? We want to serve with the spirit of excellence in all that we do. That's the expectation, and that was set up by Pastor Lynch, and that's what I intend to continue. So pray, try to be spiritually sensitive about the specific situations, and even like Solomon, take each situation for each situation. There's not just this grand, law that you should say, how do we handle this? How do we handle this? Every situation is nuanced. So I think part of being an effective leader is being a good listener and trying our best to be, we're going to have biases. We can't help that. But trying the best we can to be non-partial, not dismissive, like I dismissed our question earlier, and making people understand that they do have something to contribute, even though organizationally I may be the leader, but you're a leader in your own right too. And you have the power and, the resources to do whatever you need to bring to this ministry.
I think there's one more question.
Hello. We have some very strong women in our church.
Oh,
Do you place any limitations on how the women will serve?
Good question. All right, and I'll piggyback on Antoine's second question with that, with the women, with my wife. So I come from a lineage of, assertive, outspoken, independent-minded women. Like my mother. My mom, I love my mom to death. I do love her. But my mom definitely is not afraid to let you know what she thinks. Now, she's professional and she's a Christian woman. She's not going to go around creating confrontation. But at the same time, if her family is being treated unfairly, she's going to advocate for her kids, for her husband, and for whatever she thinks is right. My grandma's the same way. My sister's the same way. My wife is the same way. So like Miss Lynch is the same way. That's how I was able to get on with her. So I don't come from these ministries where women can't do stuff. That was very strange to me when I went to seminary. Some of my Kojic brothers, and I don't mean to denigrate a denomination, but certain denominations have limitations on women. No women preachers, and you can't wear this, and you can't be in the pulpit and all that. I don't come from that. I came from women preachers, women deacons. Lolita and I had a female minister marry us. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not here to try to hold back any women. The women are the ones that's been holding us up. So how would that benefit us at all for me to come in and, act like the great misogynist, you can't speak and, all this sort of that won't make any sense. We have to keep our women engaged and keep them motivated, because the women have been the backbone of the black church pretty much since its inception. And that's not going anywhere. So we cannot, at the expense of the youth, the millennials, and the men, we can't forget about our sisters. Whenever I come up here, be the sisters here first. Just to open up. Well, I'm not going to say that, Reverend Harrison, my bad. But, a lot of the ladies be here first sometimes, So we just can't forget about that. So I do think it's important to acknowledge what we have here and continue to push. And the thing is, if nobody's willing to step up, why wouldn't a lady do it if no man is going to do it? It doesn't matter. There's certain things in the church that need to get done. There's no gender specific for that. Granted, no man needs to be leading women's ministry, woman doing men's ministry. That's gender specific ministries. But overall, certain things, there's no gender on leadership. So I'm very excited to have strong women here in the church, have strong women in my life and in my house. I'm used to that. So for all of you that like to talk, I know some of y'all already have come to me opinionated and you didn't and this and that, I'm not even the pastor, But I'm used to it. It's no problem for me. It's no problem for me. I actually encourage it. I do think it's healthy for people to just say what they think, and not feel like they're held back, especially in the body of Christ. Well, that's going to be a part of the transition. You said my wife, she has her doctorate. She's from Cleveland. She went to North Carolina for undergrad, stayed for grad school, went to Winston-Salem for her degree, molecular medicine and translational science. So you know who the smart one is, right? But in her previous journeys in ministry, my wife has been active in several ministries. She plays the flute. She can dance. You know, she's worked with the youth. So she has a lot that she can bring. My hope is that if we are called, that she will be given the space to, fit where she feels comfortable. Ms. Lynch has done a lot, but also that's another reason I was excited about this opportunity. I feel like Pastor Lynch and Ms. Lynch will be good examples for us as a couple, and for some things for Lolita to learn as First Lady, because from what I understand, Ms. Lynch was working when Pastor was called. My wife has a full-time job. Her job is actually the reason we came to Cincinnati. So she's going to continue, to progress in her professional career until God says otherwise. So I'm going to continue to encourage and support her in that. At the same time, she's going to continue to encourage and support me in ministry as vocation. So that's just my thoughts on the situation. I think the question was grace. I'm going to need some grace. I don't know everything. My wife is going to need some grace. She doesn't know everything. But we both are here. Our hearts are open, and we're here to serve. But I do know that between the both of us, we do have a lot that we could bring. It's just a matter of, God's blueprint for that, How does he want Lo to get involved? He's going to make that very clear and make that space open. And I know that the wonderful women of this church are going to welcome my wife with open arms. And if not, I'm going to tell Miss Lynch on y'all.
Okay. Okay. All right. If called to be the pastor, what is your vision for the first year?
That's an interesting question. It's very presumptive. I mean, this whole process, it's like a new thing, all the time. When I first joined this church, I'll tell you guys a little bit about the journey. We moved here in 2019 for my wife's job. I was working fully remote at the time, so I could come join the church. But my sister found the church on the internet when they came to visit. And she said, in the words of Grandma, when she saw Pastor Lynch's picture, he looks like a right nice man. You know that picture up there of Pastor Lynch? So, and that's what she said. He looks like a right nice man. I don't know why she said it like that, like Grandma would have said it, but so that's how we picked the church. We came, it was on 5th Sunday. Y'all were having combined service. And so we were late. And the church was packed, and we were just very confused because we were coming for 11 o'clock. And now that I know him, Deacon Willis Stanley was in the parking lot and helped us get situated and get parked and made us feel like, it's okay, they're going to take care of y'all. You don't have to leave, So thank you, Deacon Stanley. I think I've seen you here tonight. So he helped get us situated. And then we came in. I'm not sure who the usher was, but somebody had to walk us straight up to the front row with a packed church. I don't know how church used to be. And it was a 5th Sunday. It was combined service. It was packed. And we sitting right on the front row, and pastor is preaching. You talking about embarrassing? Man, they probably thought these people don't have no sense, never been in church. But met pastor, let him know that I was in the ministry. He was open, called me. And, you hear that a lot, especially, trying to find your way in ministry. Call me. And I understand ministers are very busy. Pastor had 4 funerals last week, in addition to what we have going on here. So he had a lot going on. And keep in mind, I did not know Pastor Damon Lynch. I just knew this guy here that was all right. He could preach pretty good. He seemed pretty cool, I had no idea the depth of, what this relationship was going to become. I didn't know. his legacy in the city and all of that. We had no idea. So the relationship began very organically. We went to Cracker Barrel and, started talking and, that sort of thing.
Wait a second. He took you to Cracker Barrel?
Cracker Barrel.
I've known him for 30 years. He's never
Yeah.
taken me to Cracker Barrel.
So there you go, Deacon Stanley. Gave you a shout out. That was him. Anyway, so this is all new. When I joined the church, y'all were in the middle of a search already. I had no idea. I didn't know what happened with it or any of that. I was just serving and doing my thing. I was asked to preach during the summer, and that's when the search committee approached me about being a part of the process. So I know for a fact that this is God designed. Because keep in mind, in 2018, when, we started, getting things together, Cincinnati was not even a part of the plan. So just in this short time, we've moved and then found a church, and now I'm a serious candidate. So to answer that question, what's my vision for the first year? We got to get there first. Let me get called. Wouldn't it be strange if I pulled out my phone and was like, strength, courage? I can't say that. All I can say is if I am called, I'm definitely going to go into a season of prayer and possibly fasting, because this is something that is very serious. This is a full-time, I have a job that I'm very happy at, and we're okay financially, thank God. So I would have to leave my job and get into something new and, all this sort of stuff. So it's going to just require God to guide and lead and make this blueprint. So for the vision, I don't know who asked that question. First step, let's finish this process, and then let's, if God calls and then we do that, then, we'll work together with the Holy Spirit on a united vision, inspired by the pastor, but a united vision for the congregation to move forward.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Amen. So she asked what specific, type of programs would we implement for youth, teenagers?
That's sort of what you were talking about earlier. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
So I guess one of the major things, we understand that these problems are very nuanced and very deep. It's going to require direct intervention and some direct intervention in basic resources for some youth. I did adopt a class today over at Norwood View Elementary School with my job. We were over there for a couple hours, and some of those kids are in a bad way. And their teacher was talking about some of them having a lack of basic resources. And that's not even, the class we were in didn't even have any black students. These were Caucasian students, a couple of Hispanics, so, poverty is not, cultural. It affects everybody. I think one of the things that the church already has is our food pantry. If a child is hungry, they can't concentrate at school, and can't do anything. So the food pantry, I think the benevolent ministry in terms of trying to meet some of the basic needs with some of the things that we already have. We already talked earlier about engaging specifically with our youth and children's leaders that are already here. They're reigniting. They just started Children's Church back. So I'm sure they have some ideas and some things that are already ready to go. I mentioned earlier about us speaking with, even in our congregation, some educators, counselors, people that work with organizations with the youth to find out what they're already doing. And it may be some programs in existence that we can bring into the church that are already out there. I think a lot of times churches and organizations, they just want to start and do the mission and, but there's organizations that have already been in existence. It's just a matter of building partnerships and alliances. And we have the church here. We have the reputation. We already have some of these things. And just continuing to develop and build it out. One thing I've seen be very effective, though, is the recreation ministry. People love to play sports. Baseball, basketball. I don't know if we could do football within the church league or whatever, but there are some sports that are already operating that are simple. Everybody's not going to make the school team, and that's what I've seen the church league utilized for. The church league in Durham was a cooperation of Baptist, Zion, AME, just a group of black churches got together and formed a basketball league. There was talent in that league, talent. But some of those students had terrible home life, didn't go to school, different this and that. So this was their outlet to come and play ball at a high level, and also be introduced to the word of Christ, because they had to come to church at least one time. And, we try to get their parents to come. And even there were some situations where we had to meet some of the basic needs of some of the players. I had one little dude need a haircut. Here's $20. One little gentleman had a little girlfriend. He wanted to take her out. Here, $20. Just little things like that to try to keep them encouraged, so they won't get into the alternative economy, so they can, try to meet some of their basic needs. So try to meet their basic needs, engage the experts, and be open to new ideas. And once again, when they come, be ready for them. We have some activities, programs, not just for them, but for their parents as well. Parents, grandparents, whomever. Responsible adults. We can get you active too.
Wow. Give him a big round of applause for that's hard to sit up here answering all those questions.
Yeah.
But you've done a remarkable job. I'm a firm believer as we come to a close here. I'll turn this back over to Pastor Lynch but oh, okay. Oh, okay.
He had a question. He'd been trying to ask a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we get one more question in? Is that okay? All right.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well,
yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
As
Amen. Amen.
Well, that's a great way to. That's the exclamation point right there.
Yeah.
But thank you. Let me thank you again for this is not easy. It's not easy, and you did a great job. I'll be having another conversation with Reverend Lynch about the food and all that, but that's another story. So I wish you well, and nothing happens by accident. Journeys are designed, and so I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
I wish that Cleveland Browns fan the best of luck. Did everybody get a chance to stand up so everybody can see you? That's excellent. Give her a big round of applause. And that was No. What did she study? Molecular?
Molecular medicine and translational science.
I can't even say it.
I know how you can say it. Gobbledygook.
That's it. Well, and thank you for inviting me. God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Mr. McCauley. This was a wonderful evening. Thank you. We even got around the Facebook Live issues. We got all kinds of text messages, and plenty of folks got their questions answered. I'm sure there may be other questions. If you're still watching, just send them, email them to the church, and we'll see if we can get some sort of answers to you from Reverend McCauley. So with that, if you have any final remarks, and then you could just go ahead and do the benediction and we can close out.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Pastor Lynch. Thank you to my church family. I'm a member here. Thank you to all of you who came tonight out in the cold, in the dark. I appreciate it. And to all of you who tuned in. I'm very honored and humbled to even get this far in the process. So God just continues to confirm that He's got a blueprint for me. I couldn't see it, but He's definitely revealing it and making it clear. I want to thank all of you that are here. I've made personal relationships with most of you, so thank you so much for welcoming me. Thank you so much for welcoming my wife, Lolita, and making us feel like we're a part of this family already, because we are. I'm looking forward to the future. I don't know what the future holds. You know, we don't know what's going to happen tonight or tomorrow, but we just believe in God for some stuff, right? That's right. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the wonderful questions. And thank you again for this opportunity. If called to serve as pastor of this church, I would just give it all to God. And I will be honored and humbled to serve. And I promise I will do the best of my ability. And I will not let any of you down. Thank you. Oh, and let's stand for the benediction. Heavenly Father, thank you for this night, a night that you ordained before we even knew that we existed. We thank you for New Jerusalem. We thank you for this beautiful church, 95 years young, God. We thank you for the anniversary that we had yesterday, and we thank you for the living legend that we have here among us, Pastor Lynch, who's welcomed me as a son, who's taught me so much, and who's brought so much to this greater community and will continue to do so, God. So as this church moves forward on this pastoral search, I pray for the committee, I pray for the deacons and the trustees, and I pray for the congregation. This is a very serious decision, God. So I pray that your will be done and that the Holy Spirit be a part of it. Anything that is not of you, rebuke it and remove it right now. I pray for everyone that is here, everyone that is tuning in, everyone in our sphere of influence. We love you and we praise you. And as we leave from here, God, let us never leave from you. When we try to get away from you, pull us so close that we have no choice but to follow you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.